Hey, Jackie, long time no see. How are you?
Been good. It's been about a year since I've seen you guys. I was out on mat leave, but yeah, feels great to be back and chatting with the team.
Definitely miss the energy you bring to Covalent. A little birdie tells me there's the Hidden Gems reboot. What's that all about?
Yeah, what's great is that now we'll have a better chance to dive deep into different components here at Covalent. So you can take anything from product use cases on how people can actually benefit from the API or what they're building, any guest speakers. A third one is just a product that we've just released called Increment. That's great for data nerds. So it'll teach you anything on how to do data, different charts or analysis commentaries. Fourth, anything to do with our core network infrastructure, where either team members or partners come actually to speak about updates. And then fifth is anything blockchain related. We can compare different blockchains, also talk about what makes one exciting. And last but not least is business acumen, is basically teaching you how to do XYZ, such as how to do go market, how to build a sustainable business. But you can expect, again, these different themes coming throughout the weeks. So this is why it's super exciting, and we'll have a lot of different people to talk about it.
This is going to be really fun. I think uh, the number of topics you've mentioned really highlights how much the space has grown. Back then, there was no DeFi, there was no NFTs, there were no social tokens, none of these use cases. There's no L2, there's no roll-ups, none of that existed. But today, with all of the topics you mentioned, it just tells you how far we've come as an industry.
I heard that you guys had actually launched it a while back and that it did really well. So would love to get like a history on it, or what inspired you to start it up.
Answering a question with a question. I love it. Okay, so
Mhm.
the hidden gems. So the saying in the Web3 space is that you only make true friends during a bear market. So back in 2019, 2020, there were not a lot of projects that were live. People are still like heads down building. So what we decided to do is focus on the builders, right? Talk about their stories, talk about their motivations, talk about the vision that they have for the space and the products they're trying to build, really deep dive. And we call these hidden gems to highlight the hidden projects and the hidden people, hidden talent in the space. And I think we got our first 10 customers at Covalent directly from that podcast, people who had heard that podcast and then looked us up and reached out to us. Back then, it was very early in the life cycle of Covalent. But that's really the story behind Hidden Gems.
Exciting thing is our first episode, which is going to be given by yours truly, Ganesh, our CEO, is going to be covering basically the first quarter updates for 2023. And yeah, I can't wait to hear about all the
Let's
things
go.
I've missed.
Let's go. Okay, so one of the things that gets us really excited at Covalent is building new products. And our flagship product at Covalent that we've been building for a couple of years now is the unified API. And what just some background on Covalent is what we've done is we've scraped all on-chain data, normalize and canonicalize that into a unified schema, and then offer that data through a couple of products, the unified API being our flagship and most one of the most used products in this space. But this is a product that's not standstill, right? It's always evolving with the changes in the space. It's always evolving with new technologies, new kinds of things that are coming up in the space. In Q1 of 2023, we've shipped over 50 new endpoints. So this is a pretty big kind of product release that we've done. And be assured that we are going to keep up this aggressive product investment and product release over the coming quarters. We're never going to back down from just building products, because that's who we are at our core. So I'm going to try a countdown style product announcement here. I've seen a lot of these with the movie top 5 movies that you see in ETV. So I'm going to try something like this. This is our own ETV, if you will. Feature number 5 is 30 new blockchains. So a lot of you guys know that we've indexed a lot of the majority of the blockchains like Ethereum and Polygon and Avalanche and Phantom, and then there's a big long list. But one of the key milestones we actually crossed in Q1 is 100 blockchains indexed in total. This is including all the test nets and all of the main nets. That's 100 blockchains that's now accessible through the unified API. And 30 out of those 100 blockchains were just added in Q1 alone. Coinbase recently came up with an optimistic rollup. So that's an example of a chain that was recently released. Consensus also came up with a ZK EVM. It's definitely the zero knowledge flavor of the day in Q1. So we've done a lot of expansion. Newer blockchains like Mantle that have an L2 that is secured by Ethereum. Lots of interesting stuff that's going on there. Product release number 4. Balances V3. So the balances endpoint, the token balances endpoint within Covalent is one of our most popular and most used endpoints. And this endpoint is beautiful because it gives you all the, not just your fungible token balances, your ERC20 assets, but also gives you your NFTs. And this includes the 721s and then 1155s. So it's a pretty popular, endpoint. And you can see this heavily used across thousands of apps out there. One of the scaling challenges we've had over the past couple of years is that the data on the blockchain has just grown dramatically. The number of tokens on the blockchain has grown exponential. So getting these token balances through a single endpoint is just not able to scale, right? And so stuff that worked in 2020, 2021 no longer works in 2023. I'm not saying from a logic perspective, the logic of finding token balances still remains the same. It's just a matter of scale. So you're not able to scale to these bigger wallets like a Binance hot wallet or a Coinbase hot wallet or an NFT collector. So what we've done is we've rebuilt the entire engine. We're calling this balances V3. And what we are able to do is we're able to pre-cache every token, every block, every token holder, and their balance that is pre-cached, pre-computed. And we now have these tables that are cached for Ethereum, Polygon, and Binance chain. So this Balances V3 engine is a brand new engine. We've been working on it for almost a year now, and it's seamlessly built into the V2 engine. So if you use the Balances V2 engine, but use it on Ethereum or Polygon or BSC, then automatically it switches to the V3 engine, and suddenly you're going to have more predictable responses. You're going to have faster responses. I believe our benchmark, an internal benchmark, is most of these responses return within 50 milliseconds, no matter the size of the wallet. So that's a pretty incredible feat of engineering that we've now released to the market. And it looks like a lot of our customers have messaged us and said, "Hey, is something wrong with the Covalent API? It seems like all the responses are so fast, right? I wonder if I'm missing something." But actually, you're not missing anything. It's just that the endpoint has been rebuilt from the ground up. Product release number 3. This is Transactions V3. So the Transactions V2 is one of our second most popular endpoints. And so it's one of the few products out there where if you give it a wallet address, it gives you all of the transactions that that wallet was involved in. Now, this is a very unique product in the space because most other competing transactions endpoints, they only give you transactions that have your wallet address in either the to or the from. So very simple kind of transaction retrieval. Now, this kind of retrieval mechanism worked in 2019, 2020, where you had very simple token transfers, very simple like asset transfers. But today, transactions are a lot more complicated. You have staking, you have restaking, you have bridging across, you have all kinds of really complicated systems. So your wallet can actually appear in multiple places on the blockchain, not just in the to and the from. How this endpoint works is that it does a deep crawl. It also indexes your log events. Sometimes it indexes if it has access to call data, which is the case when you were if you're like transferring assets between blockchains. So it's a very, very sophisticated kind of endpoint. And this endpoint is a mission critical endpoint for taxation purposes because most of these transactions are taxable events. So you don't want to miss anything because you could have huge liabilities coming after you a couple of years down the line. This endpoint was built as best in class, basically what is maximally possible a few years ago. But two things have changed since then. First is that the data on the blockchain has just exploded in the last 2 years. Dramatic growth in the size of the data, the number of users, the number of usage, the complexity of these transactions, everything has just gone up an order of magnitude. So that technology no longer worked. The second thing is that this endpoint was initially built just to show the last 10 transactions in your wallet, which meant it's mostly for a wallet use case. So if you use something like Rainbow or XDeFi, and you see your historical list of transactions, they usually stop at the last 10 or 15 transactions. So it's meant to just show the latest transactions just for a user perspective. But today, what we're starting to see is that this endpoint is being used in machine-to-machine kind of API calls, where you download all of the transactions, and then you have a computation engine after the fact that computes your liabilities or computes your risk or whatever calculation that you want, custom calculation. And so we've rebuilt this endpoint from the ground up. Again, it's taken us almost a year to release this. And this V3 endpoint is now accessible on Ethereum, Polygon, and Binance chain. So these are the top 3 chains that we support. And it has a couple of really cool features. It has stable pagination. So if you're paginating through the transactions V2 endpoint, for example, and if there's a new transaction that appears, all of these page offsets are moved by 1, which is quite difficult and cumbersome to work with. So we've solved that issue, and it scales to even the hot wallets that have millions of transactions for a centralized exchange, for example. It's a brand new piece of technology, really compelling, and our biggest customers who use the Covalent API really love this endpoint. And what we usually see is that if we improve the performance of an endpoint, the consumption of the endpoint just increases. It's just that these products are quite elastic. Product release number 2 is our Class C endpoints. So the Class C endpoint technology is a way for developers to write SQL and save that SQL as a new endpoint. So this is a way to extend the Covalent platform where you have user-generated content creating endpoints and still served by the Covalent infrastructure. Now, what we've done is we've gone out and built the first 10 Class C endpoints just to dog food our own product. So we've built Aave, Compound, Frax Finance, InstaDApp, and a couple of protocols. You can go to our API reference and check out what protocols are supported. And these are again best in class, right? So if you want to figure out what are your token balances that are deposited into the Aave protocol, or you want to find market information, what are the current markets that are available on Aave, on Ethereum, and their supply and demand APRs. And if you want to figure out your transactions, again, this is very powerful. All of your deposits, all of your withdrawals, all of your liquidation transactions for a wallet on Aave, we support all of these endpoints. So typically there's about 4 or 5 different endpoints per protocol. And we've released, I think, 9 protocols so far. So really excited about that. It was a huge initiative by our team to push hard with the Class C technology. So excited about that. Product release number 1, which is the Premium API. This is the core mechanism that unlocks the token accrual mechanism with CQT. And that Premium endpoints went in a whitelisted fashion back in January. And then in February, we expanded the list, and in March, it was generally available, so GA. And since then, we've seen almost 100 people who've subscribed for this endpoint and are starting to unlock higher rate limits and more credit consumption. We've changed the way we track the consumption of these endpoints. It's no longer just API calls, but it's actually credits consumed, which is our internal metric on how resource intensive and how resource expensive a particular endpoint is. So something like the balances endpoint is 1 credit. Something like a transactions endpoint is about 0.1 credit per transaction item. So there's multiple pricing models. One of the interesting side effects about these premium endpoints is that it's gotten rid of all of the bots and all of the high traffic, low value users. So what that means is people who abuse the infrastructure because it's a free API. I think that's generally one of the challenges with building a public good is that you always have the freeloaders. And it's gotten rid of these freeloaders. So the infrastructure is actually improved as a as an overall metric for the entire ecosystem. Those are our top 5 features in Q1. As you've seen, we've been very, very busy. I think Q2 is going to be an even busier quarter for us. So looking forward to shipping more products as always. Thanks.
That was such an awesome first quarter update for 2023. Thank you so much, Ganesh. So if anybody is interested in signing up for the API, how can they do that?
You simply have to go to covalenthq.com. There's a button on the top, sign up for the API or sign into the platform. It's a free API. The API will always be free. And then you only have to pay for the API after you exceed 100K in credits. So this is a very generous fee plan because we don't want to provide, we don't want to have any kind of barriers to entry for people who are just new to the space.
We'll include the description just at the bottom below for you guys to have more accessibility to it. And yeah, just keep updated on our YouTube channel by subscribing. As always, thank you. And we'll see you guys next time.